I got this album. I thought it was great. I was like, hey, listen, I've got nothing. And then I just pitched what I thought was this outlandish idea. I said, if you talk about telling the truth.
All right, let's do this one fast. I just yesterday or so chatted with Mike Mannix from Centripetal Force. Runs an amazing record label, Centripetal Force. He had been kind of in contact since I've been doing these videos, um, giving feedback and sort of wanting to have a dialogue, and it was very good stuff. And I've always been impressed, ever since he's kind of gotten on my radar about what he's just very talented at parts of promotion and whatnot. And the fact that this stuff was still resonating for him was very interesting to me. So I don't want to drag it on too much. Let's just get right into the interview. I'm here with Mike Mannix of Centripetal Force, and excited to have this conversation. Just excited you're here. Where do we find you today?
I live in La Selva Beach, California, just a little south of Santa Cruz. I guess you would consider it the Central Coast. And as you know, Sam, we have lots of power outages here. We didn't know if this was going to happen because we had 2 different power outages this morning, but we're good to go.
Great. And previously, you were very much associated with Nashville as well, right? So
in 2015, my wife and I moved to Nashville. She wanted to do graduate school. I was teaching high school at the time. Got to Nashville and realized that I was done teaching, and did a couple more years of teaching because the wife was in grad school and some things need to be done. But just like anywhere else I lived, I jumped right into the local music scene, and with the teaching career phasing out and stay-at-home dad life coming, I thought I would go back to something I did back in the 90s, which was foolishly, possibly, arguably, run a record label.
Great. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's been since 2017-ish, about.
Yeah, laid down the groundwork in 2017, and I believe that first record, the Direwolves Headroom Split album, came out in 2018.
Got it. And it was funny, like my dumb brain was like, man, I feel like I've heard about him for so long, and then I'm like, that is so long now. That is a really long time. I have like a weird time thing where if it's 2019, I'm like, that's yesterday, right? Yeah, no.
In 2018, there was no gray in the beard.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's and so I started seeing various records and buying various records and enjoying your work, and it was nice to see that you very friendly on a level that I wish I was good at myself. Reached out and was giving me some good feedback on the newsletter and what we were bringing up, and pretty much since then I was like, well, we need to make this time to have this conversation because it's interesting. I kind of had a similar conversation with Brad about perception. I'd love to understand sort of where you're at with things. That was one question I was going to say is, as we get into this, what's the most recent thing you like? What's your not your debacle? What's your record label day look like? What did you do today, yesterday? What are you working on? What does it look like on a day-to-day basis? What's your most recent thing you had to do about the label?
Lots of emails.
Yep.
Revving up the promotion machine for a John Camp album that will be out in October. So answering some questions that he had, sending out the press kits. I mean, the list is long. I try to personalize those emails, so hammer out a few of those. So yeah, on a daily basis, it's a ton of email. I don't think people realize how much email goes into a release.
Yeah, yeah.
You're just all the emailing with the artist, emailing with the various components, pressing plants,
Mhm.
people that are
Your
mastering.
distro, your mastering person, your
Oh,
yada
it
yada yada.
is. It's a time drain.
Yeah.
And I feel bad sometimes because other emails come in and I cannot get to them. My regular day job also relies on email, and it just makes my head explode sometimes. So emails a couple times a week, some mail order, and then brainstorming and thinking about the label, which usually happens on dog walks.
Huh? Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Not to mention all the texting and social media that has to go on.
Yep.
Uh,
It
I
is so much it is so much plate spinning and communication. And as I've been talking about a little bit, like myself, like the stuff I love is definitely not always that. And the stuff I'm good at, if I'm focused and I know the answer, I'm one of those people that I want to know the answer, I'll get back to you. But if I'm like, I don't know, things will get put on this like back burner and it will sit on the back burner for a little too long. Then I'm like, oh, it sat on the back burner for too long. Now it's kind of embarrassing to respond to that. Like unless I have a really good answer now. And I think that side of whatever my brain's problem is just uh a real barrier. And I think one of the biggest barriers for someone like me to do a label is that sort of, if you are somebody who can just manage a whole lot of communication with zero worries or overhead, if you're an extrovert, if you really can manage I can manage all the context switching better than most people, but sometimes it's the managing. Oh, just respond to that email. You don't need to like think about it heavily. Just respond to it. You know what I mean? You don't have to have the best answer in the world. Um, because I say all that to fully confirm what you were just saying. Like a majority of most facilitation roles is just that communication path, right?
Absolutely. You saying that I'm trying to train myself to, what 5 submissions have come in this week.
Hmm.
It's a busy week. I don't know when I'll be able to give them a listen. I want to give them a listen, but I need to train myself to respond right away. It's not that hard. It can just be a simple answer. Just respond. Because after a couple of weeks goes by, it does become a little bit embarrassing, and then the guilt kicks in, and the guilt is
100%.
not expediting things at
And
all.
it doesn't help anybody. Nobody gave you that guilt. You didn't, like, where's that guilt from and what is it doing for you? It's that
Oh,
sort of like
you could
a
go there.
Buddhist, you know what I mean? The concept of like, why did you invent this guilt and give it to yourself? And that's everything right now, with the label and having too many plates spinning, and I think that's so much of the label is just, oh, I just got an email that threw me for a loop about a mastering thing that I was just telling you about, and it's hilarious. And if I don't immediately respond to that when we're done, I'll probably go stew on it and be like, why, what, and I'll think about it when really it should just be, oh, that's crazy. What, and then ask some questions, it's not hard to, and yes, of course, the submissions, it's like, it is not very hard to go, I got this. It's going to be a little bit before I give you any, feedback on it, but I got it. I heard it. You know what I mean? It's in the inbox, it's not, it's so small, but it helps so much for everybody around you just to do these little check-ins. And I'm trying to get infinitely better about that.
Yeah, it's a constant struggle, all while keeping in mind this is a passion project,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Why start from guilt? You know what I mean?
exactly. I'm enjoying this.
I think that's such a funny thing, though, is what you described there. People might feel like we're getting off on a tangent, but this isn't a tangent. This is the most true to what you described is more of what you do as a label than almost anything else. Is be like, who do I owe something to? How far along is it? Do I have control over it? Am I just going to go, well, that thing's not done, and just going, you're just having this big project management mush in your head, and hopefully you've got some systems, and it's just going, well, can I move that project forward? I can or I can't. And is it on me or not? And then am I in a position to, if it's on me, am I in a position today to move that thing forward?
and
And
and having the tough conversations that happen as a result of making decisions about whether things
Exactly.
move forward, how fast are they going to move forward.
Exactly. Yeah. And you go, well, this will be fine, and this one's working. And then you look up and it's mid-August, and you're like, well, I thought we were moving everything forward very quickly, um, and yeah, it's such a hurry up and wait industry too, where if you are too black box about how you're working with other people, they don't know the difference between it's on me and I owe you something, and it's at a manufacturer, it's doing whatever it's doing, and I have no control over it. You know what I mean? There's times in which I can move things through faster. There's times where I'm making strategic decisions to slow things down. And there's times when it's like, well, remember, this is completely out of my hands right now. And that's why things like communication, I mean, all the people out there whose day jobs are project management and all these things, uh, go, yeah, that's project management. And I say that too, because in a day job, it's certainly easy. But when it's, as you say, your passion project, your thing you've done every day for 10 years or 20 years, it's a whole different thing, and also when you have this combination of, I love this music so much, but this is so taxing on the rest of my life. It's such an interesting combination, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And we've both seen people burn out as a result. And a lot of times those are some of the biggest losses in the kind of do-it-yourself music, wrong word I'm going to say here, industry.
Yes, I mean, whether or not it's an industry, but yes, yeah, I think that's the number one thing is if somebody really wants to run a label, they need to. I don't think you need to warn anybody off of it. You just need to say, well, I mean, you have to say, are you ready to lose a bunch of money? Most likely, um, or be incredibly perfect at what you do, and do a lot of things that release a lot fewer things than what you want to release. Probably is the big thing. Um, uh, but on top of that is also the coaching up of like, well, this is I say this to people whenever they're thinking about career changes in general and thinking about a career is, what do you want to be doing? 8 hours a day. Like, what do you actually want to be doing at your job? Like, I don't mean conceptually, what do you want to be doing? What do you like? Fingers moving on a keyboard? Do you want to be standing up at a lab desk? Do you want to be like, what do you want to be doing? Do you want to be talking to others nonstop? Do you want to be on your own? Like, you have to break it down that far to really find out like what you want out of a career. And this is as much of that as anything else, a hobby career. And a lot of it is going to just be these keep the plate spinning, have an opinion on top of it. Like, I could keep that plate spinning, but I also need to inject some opinion into it. That's a really complex thing. And I it's another one that we haven't even brought up that much. I think Brad and I have talked a little bit about that, but like, um, the reality of quote unquote running a label is it's so much more when people say, here's a great question. When you say you have a record label, what's the first thing people who don't understand having a record label talk to you about?
Do you have a studio in your house?
I find that so interesting that they equate studios to labels. That's the first thing and I think anybody in our industry would not expect that to be the first thing that people say. But yeah, it's recording studio. They equate it to it's recording studio, and then you say, no, I don't record the music because I don't record the music. I don't know about you.
No.
And I say, no, I do all the other stuff, and then they go, what other stuff?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting.
Yeah, explaining that I have a bunch of boxes in the garage that I do mail order and put some out for distribute. Yeah, it's a long conversation.
Yeah, you say, well, you have to you have to manufacture the things, you have to bankroll the things, you have to market the things, and then you have to do all the fulfillment. It's like any small business. It's interesting. I feel like if you said, I have a soap company, they'd be able to go, okay, you manufacture the thing, you market it, you mail it. I get it. You're a small, Etsy company or something like that. But for some reason, record labels is not as clean. But yeah, and kind of not to their detriment. I think one of the big things we're trying to do here is open up the reality of what it is to be a record label. What do you do as a record label, and what levers do you actually have to pull? And one of the big things I talk about here a lot is press and the effectiveness of press. And it was interesting to watch you react to that very kind of positively is probably not the right term, but having feelings on that. Because one thing that immediately jumps out to me when I think of you is I think you are, again, kind of like when I talked about Brad and perception, I go, oh, that guy's really got his press together. That guy really understands promotion. That guy, I don't know where he finds the time, sort of thing. Like, he seems like he's a really connected guy. Also, just his stuff has polish. Like, you do very good social, but your social doesn't just feel off the cuff. It feels like you actually put work into it. It seems like you do good design, all that stuff. And it's funny to watch, and me being like, oh, I wish I was like that. I wish I was doing more like that. And then I say the press is kind of a mess and you're not getting any feedback from it, and you immediately show up and go, yes. Like, that changes perspective. And even me, who is trying to scream from the mountaintops, the world is not what you seem. It was interesting to watch myself fall directly back into that trap of, well, it seems like Mike's really got his shit together around press. You know what I mean? And he's doing a lot more than what I do, and he's doing it well. So you've kind of, all that to say, when this topic has come up, what about the whole conversation about the press sort of fallout, the sort of the bottom falling out, has resonated the most for you? Where does that come up for you?
When I started the label, I knew that getting press was going to be the biggest challenge. So my strength in teaching in the classroom was relationship building. So I figured I needed to do probably a couple of years of relationship building with folks, people like Andy at Raven Sings the Blues, Keith at Record Crates United, all the folks at Aquarium Drunkard.
Mhm.
And then I was living in Nashville at the time. So uh, Steven at the Nashville scene, the
Mhm.
local alt weekly. So I invested a bunch of time in that because I saw that press would be the gateway to moving albums out the door, moving records out the door. And after putting in a couple years of hard work, I saw the results. Right around the time of the pandemic, I saw there was a correlation between uh, people giving you coverage very graciously, thank you, everyone, and moving units out the door. And then something changed. I continued to build relationships. Press coverage continued to expand, but all of a sudden, press coverage within the past couple of years, press coverage and moving units are not hand in hand anymore. Uh, I've had releases that get very strong press coverage. They end up in The Wire. They'll be on Aquarium Drunkard. They're hitting the larger music blog like websites, and the numbers aren't there. And this is, I'm not blaming this on the press people. It's something has shifted in culture due to social media, the way that people receive information post pandemic, this post pandemic era in itself being uncharted territory as far as behaviors and what people are going to buy or be interested in. It's a giant mess right now, and it felt like a big blow because I really believed when I started the label that the relationship building and getting the press was going to help possibly turn a passion project into something larger than a passion project. And it was a big blow to me when I realized that press and 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 sales aren't going hand in hand anymore. And I don't know how to address that. I mean, in the next week, I will send out over 100 emails. I'll personalize them as much as I can for each recipient, and that'll be for the forthcoming John Camp record. I'm going to keep trying, but deep down, I know it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. And I don't know how to get through this this challenge. The pandemic was a challenge. I had strategies, got
Mhm.
through. Arguably, the pandemic treated me very well. I don't know how to get through this one.
Yes, I think what you're saying makes tons of sense, and I also think, um, well, my next question, I guess, the follow up question is: are you seeing any clear patterns? You probably would have already said if you are, but around what does create sales? Like what when you have sales, I assume you're seeing what a lot of people are seeing, which is sort of like a much higher amount of volatility where something will do okay or well, if you're very lucky, and some things will do dirt awful, and you kind of can't see the difference because, especially we're very close to it and we love all these records pretty equally, and you just go, "Yeah, what's the difference?" And have you been able to step back? Has there been enough time that you're starting to see patterns, or does it just feel like noise right now?
Mostly noise, but I have made a couple of observations. I'll use some specific examples. I'm,
Sure.
I'm sure the artists wouldn't mind.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, I put out an Elijah McLaughlin record, a record he did with Caleb Willits, which I think is a groundbreaking piece of, I don't know, experimental ambient jazz. And the expectations I had were through the roof. And the reviews came in. Reviews are great. It's not moving units. If you want to copy the album, I've got a whole bunch out in garage, and I hold no animosity towards the artist. It's what happened. I believed 100% in this record, and it didn't go anywhere. And this was one of my larger investments. This was one of my larger projects. This was a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of copies. Then I also have projects that I feel are kind of like, I'll use a baseball metaphor: Elijah McLaughlin, Caleb Willits, Major League Baseball. And then I have a couple of projects that came shortly after that. Kevin Coleman out of Nashville, and Soma, a Hindu psychedelic band out of New Jersey. So I invest in those as development projects, knowing that they've got something special. We can build something together, and we'll get them through the minor leagues and then get them to the majors. And lo and behold, Kevin Coleman record, outstanding performance. And I believe that was because I Hayden Pedigo, I ran into him in LA one day, and he's like, if you're wondering why so many people are listening to Kevin Coleman, it's because of this website. And it was FM something. They have like lots of like short reviews,
I
and
know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Last FM.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, Last FM, yeah.
Yeah, so Last FM has never been on my radar. I've peeked a couple times after Hayden mentioned that to me. And so this Kevin Coleman record kind of blew up beyond expectation, beyond my expectation. I'm sure beyond his expectation because of Last FM. So that was one trend that I saw. We'll see if we can repeat it next year. We do another Kevin Coleman. And then the Soma record, uh, it it's a niche record, but it's a niche record that touches a bunch of different subcultures: the tattoo artist subculture, the uh, a lot of these guys came out of the Krishna hardcore scene of the
Mhm, mhm,
of the
mhm.
1990s, late
Yep,
80s, 1990s
yep.
in New York. So there was that subculture that it kind of tapped into. Very, very, very dedicated
Yeah,
subcultures.
yes, finding
You know,
those.
they are friends and customers that are just gonna
Yep.
go for it. And they did. And the Soma outperformed. So both artists also worked very, very hard with me, playing shows, getting the word out, savvy with social media, and helping out wherever they could. So instead of relying so much on media, uh, networking,
Yes.
both artists had themselves plugged into networks that led to better success than the Elijah record, which I plugged into press and didn't see the results that Kevin and Soma did. And I believe it was Kevin that sent a couple of people on Last FM his record, and that's how he got plugged in. Uh, now that I think of it,
And yeah,
I
I
really
mean,
looking more into Last FM apparently.
yeah, I mean, I remember from ages ago, I used to have a band and do stuff from very early Debacle where you could see people what they were listening to. This was very early Last FM. I don't know how much has changed. And it would just automatically show people what you were listening to. And if they listened to any of our stuff, I would send them personal messages thanking them.
Brilliant.
And especially at that time, that wasn't this we weren't in the overload period, and it was kind of all the social was new and everything, and just somebody being like, "Hey, you downloaded." It was sort of like put it all out on the Blogspot blogs, and then when you saw people catching it and trying it, you'd come around and go like, "Hey, thanks for listening," and you would get free, and then they'd go, "Oh, maybe I should look this up," and it was this like kind of virtuous cycle. But um
I think things like that still go a long way. I try to add as many personal notes to the mail orders as I can, in hopes that that I'm making a connection with someone that will give me and the releases that I do a second thought. It doesn't take much time to do it. It's a low time investment, but the potential is
I think it's something I need to train myself back into because there was periods of my life when I really did all that, and then I think, I think a lot of this is a exploration of like burnout a little bit, or sort of, hey, I've done so much, I've almost forgotten all the things I've done. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh yeah, I don't do that anymore. I used to draw random just whatever came out of my pen, out of the Sharpie drawings on the back of all the LP mailers, like as fast as I could. And sometimes they looked like things and sometimes they didn't. And I would just be like, thanks. And then, and it was kind of weird, impressionistic Sharpie. And then I just stopped one day because I was like, is this doing anything? And I bet it was. It's just, you just forming habits is hard, but also just, you never know. And I think being better about that stuff. The one thing I do is always, if people know, especially domestic orders, you're almost always getting a second record. You know what I mean? Like I have enough stuff that you're almost always getting a second record. And I feel like one thing I could do better with that is explain that, because sometimes people go, oh, I got the second record. And I'm like, yeah, that's for you. That's a gift. And they're like, oh, thanks. And that conversation's really good, I think. But I don't want to be showy about it. But I also think there's another version where they're like, oh, they gave me dead stock. You know what I mean? This must not be a very good record. And I usually think pretty hard about what they're buying and then look at what else they've bought, if they bought anything, and then go, okay, I'm going to give you a new record. So, yeah, I think there's a communication thing that I'm trying to get a lot better with. And I think a lot of this is just going, hey, I'm good at this. I should just talk to people more. I should talk and say my thoughts out loud. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of what we're trying to talk about here is um, finding better ways into people's brains, because the press cycle just doesn't seem to be working as much. And I really 100% believe that what you're feeling about those artists is that they have a fan base, they have a network, they work the fan base and work the network. And then they also got the benefit of, like, you were also doing layers of doing that. There's this kind of recombinant thing, but it doesn't work without the central pillar of the artists themselves being genuine and out there, because otherwise it just feels like you're pushing a product, and people are sick of products being pushed at them. And I think some artists go, but you're the label or you're the press, person. You should be doing the press for me. Why do I have to do press? I'm not very good at press. I'm an artist. I want to do art. And you're like, yeah, I hear you. I want it to be 1991 too. But like the world responds to people a lot more. They want to support friends, and then everybody else feels like just another person pushing product at them. And it's just so much, and the signal to noise is so high that having a personal connection, and I don't mean the personal connection the way we used to talk about, like, oh, you have this very realistic brand. I really truly mean that you're actually, capturing people who want to help you, you know what I mean? In a different way than just how we used to tell people how to become social media influencers and manage their personal brand. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that, and a little bit more artist friendly than that. And it, it there's an argument that you're starting to obviate the need for labels or whoever. And I sometimes say that I still say certain bands should spend a little bit of time self-publishing for a while and see if they need a label or not. Because I think certain artists absolutely don't, and kind of give away the whole thing by feeling like they need to rely on an industry scaffolding that I don't think they need to. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, you got it already, man. Like, just go do your thing. You know what I mean? And if you need a manager, that's where it's at. I think people need to start thinking more about managers. But
And not managers like in the sense of, Colonel Tom Parker or whoever.
no, much more in a trusted business partner that takes a little off the top, that you're both invested in actually turning your art into commerce a little bit, and actually going, well, I need help, and this person has connections to help you, but they're not trying to put their face out in front of it. You know what I mean? They're not trying to be the label they're just helping 2 to 4 artists keep their shit straight. Somebody who's good at keeping their shit straight, have good connections, know some CPAs, know some lawyers, know some, like that, just they have their bag of tricks, and they can help artists be artists.
Yeah. A couple thoughts.
Yeah.
Couple thoughts there. One, the whole personalizing thing. Yes. I remember when I made the label website, my wife and I went back and forth for days. She insisted that on the about page that I needed a picture of myself on there. And I said, no, because it's not about me. It's the little circle with the lines. Centripetal Force. And she's like, no, it's you. People trust you. People connect to you as well as the label. And I feel like she was right. So a couple months ago, I did, this is, the video thing, like it's awkward. But I did like a backyard, hey, this is what I got coming up for Bandcamp Friday. And the interactions I received from that were amazing. The positivity, the results on that Bandcamp Friday were amazing. And my concern was that I was going to come across like I was trying to be an influencer, but I think in reality, people appreciated the connection. So then when I see you doing your blog, or not your newsletter.
I call it a newsletter. It's obviously not a newsletter, but
it's the same thing. Yes. And there I am. I mean, one day I'm writing paragraphs to you on Instagram, and I'm like, oh, this is
the connection. Yes.
100%. We got to get smaller to get
especially because we're not asking a lot of people. We're asking for a certain amount of people, and then a small group of them to buy 100 to, if you're doing well, 500 records. You know what I mean? And I'm all the way at the point of going 100. You know what I mean? That's where I'm capping out. And that's such a small thing, but it's almost harder when you're that small. You know what I mean? It's almost harder. These days it feels like every sale is like it's just like pulling teeth. It's just so important, and so you're going to have to go out and have those one-to-one connections. And the nice thing is, I think in this day and age, there's a higher level. Again, there's a signal to noise thing, that when people find something they like and they relate to, and you stay kind of in their orbit, they're like, oh, that's that safe thing that I know I like and I trust, versus like all this other stuff that I can't trust and I don't know if I want to support it, And I think I also don't want to sound like two old dudes going like, have you seen this Tic Tac thing? But like it is true that just like embrace like the music industry we roll in, and funny enough, the experimental music industry, one of my big things I'm railing about a lot is it is a very conservative minded, everything else is very conservative minded. It doesn't want to try new things. It doesn't want to do digital only releases. It doesn't want to, like we are really happy to ship pallets of plastic around the world. You know what I mean? And we're really happy to do all these things. And I'm not saying they're good, bad, or otherwise, but we need to think about them. We need to think about what we're doing. And as much as we're ready to yell at the new, which I'm more than happy to go, Spotify streaming has been a interesting experiment that has failed us because there was nothing was put in place to help us. You know what I mean? And Spotify especially is just a morally bankrupt company. That's easy for that because it's new. It's easy for our world to yell at it. But I think we need to also look at the, the whole thing and yell at, why do we still do things the way we do things? You know what I mean? Like why is the old good and the new bad? You know what I mean? And instead we have to change. We have to be realistic about things. We have to be honest about this stuff. And I think, yeah, just us, you and I going, well, I'm sick of typing, one-to-one to people. Maybe I can still be me and talk, and I knew that for me, that's a really big thing. Cause I would have people would compliment my writing, which I think is wild, but cause it's like pulling teeth, but, I would have to,
I taught writing and have my master's in teaching of writing, and writing is pulling teeth.
Yes, I've heard this from every good book on writing. Basically, it says it's still like bloodletting, and I'm like, well, if you think that, but yes, like it was just the realization of I would do 2 weeks of the newsletter, and then there would be 3 months, and then it's a release is out this week, and I should do another newsletter, and that's not what I want. I want connection. I crave a connection to my community, but and when I was really involved in Seattle, I've definitely stepped back and burnt out of live stuff, but like people would be like, wow, you're really stoked about it. I didn't hear anything about this record, and you're like, I thought I was doing enough, and I obviously wasn't, you know what I mean? And so it's doing things like just saying, oh, I'm going to turn the camera on and do the stuff I'm good at. I'm good at being excited, or I'm good at having opinions, whether good, bad, or otherwise, you know what I mean? And maybe that will help. And I hope it comes off like that and not just like, well, these podcast things are really interesting. You know what I mean? Like, but I applaud you for doing that, because I think it's wild how few, like I've started to have a few pop up on Instagram and TikTok where like, oh, these younger kids they've fully moved on to their reviews are all just these little quick, shorts that are reviews of a record. And I'm just like, why is that so small? Why is that still kind of niche? Why are we so beholden to old school record journalist ideas? I'm not saying it's good, bad, or otherwise. I don't know what's good. I don't know if that's the Spotification of their industry. I don't know any of this stuff, but I'm always curious about how slow moving we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I really applaud you for doing what you're doing with putting your face out there and actually saying like, yeah, here's this thing I'm passionate, like, because the reason to have a record label is to go, I'm passionate about something. I invested my family's money, as I always think about it, in putting this out for you. This means a lot to me. And so I want you to like it too. And I think we lose that when it's just a brand, a logo, and I think as much as it can be a little like, why are we doing this and what are we doing and who are we representing? I think that's still a part of the cycle, in the same way that going and talking to your distributor, like I like that my distributor has a big social media, presence, you know what I mean? As just a funny guy, and all this stuff. Like, I think everybody in the cycle, I think with the alienation of online right now, we've lost some of that of just basic appreciation of, oh, that's a person and I know their name. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I want to go back to what you were saying before, and it'll connect to this. Artists maybe not needing a label, and maybe looking at label life as more of a partnership instead of a label artist relationship. But something that's more on equal grounds. And I've done Yep. No two financial arrangements for any release have been the same with me. Uh, I actually had one release where I was dead broke. I had no money. I got this album. I thought it was great. I was like, "Hey, listen, I've got nothing." And then I just pitched what I thought was this outlandish idea. I said, "If you talk about telling the truth, if
I like it.
you if 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 you were to pay for your own pressing of 50 cassettes,
Mhm.
and we put a Centripetal Force logo and catalog number on there, I will push it just like any other Centripetal Force release, and I'll just take $1 per cassette." And that person said yes. And we will be having our second release, not with that same financial arrangement, coming soon. Um, so I artists and labels, I think, need to get more creative. I mean, I think that's kind of an extreme example. I will say that when I put out the Jack Silverman quartet record, we went 50-50 on that
Yeah.
press.
I've done
And
this multiple times, and I was so ashamed the first time I did it. And I
mhm.
think it's wild. All it is that they're pre-buying their copies,
And they're getting a better deal.
and they're getting it at cost. I am giving them a better deal
Mhm.
at cost and saying, "Hey, if you come in early, you can help me out." And I'm just not in a place where I'm dumping this, and it's a more risky record for me, but it also could be not. I can't tell. It's especially when I can't tell. And almost always, by the way, those are the records that sold out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cause it's everybody is an invested. Um, we getting ourselves out of that old record industry frame of mind and just throwing something at the wall and seeing if it will work out. Multi-label releases. I've got a
Yeah,
hand.
you've really done that a lot.
Gosh, talk about saving, distribution headaches. You're sharing expenses, not only doing multi-label releases, but multi-label and the artist involved as well.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're producing more copies. You're bringing everybody's price down because you're pressing more. And I mean, the multi-label release in my world isn't new. A punk
No,
label
it's not
was
new.
doing that in the late 70s into the early 80s. But I think people need to continue revisiting out of the box ideas. We need to break out of the uh, record industry mindset. We are not Sony Records of
No.
1991, definitely not Sony Records of 2025. But like I said earlier, get smaller so you can get
And get
bigger.
more community minded. As much as this just sounds like everybody thinks, like, if anybody doesn't like that idea, that they're just saying, "Oh, you were a credit card to me. You were a bank that was ready to take a risk on me. You weren't a partner to me. You were, like, if somebody has a hard time with it." Again, I've had a hard time at times asking for those deals, you know what I mean? Or suggesting those deals. And then even when a couple times labels have come to me, I think I'm in a different place now. I have that fear of, like, well, now when I mess up or when they mess up, it's like this weird, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the partnership is really needs a lot of trust. But
Mhm,
you work with Cardinal Fuzz, who does a ton of that.
mhm.
And like, so, like, that they're good for it, and you now have a history and of working with it. And I know a good buddy of mine, Adam at Eiderdown, who just texted me while we are in this message. He does a lot of split stuff, and especially Euro splits and stuff like that. And he's really all about it. And it makes so much sense. It is funny what is, as I want to make it very clear whenever I have these conversations, I was just railing about of all of us having our hangups and not being ready, open to new things. And I still haven't done a split release with anybody because I have hangups, like Beacon Sound's another one in Portland that does all sorts of split releases with people, or whatever the right partner releases, is probably a better thing. Um, and they have no qualms, and they do great work with it. And for some reason, maybe there's ego too. I don't really think that's what it is. It's more the fear of group projects. I think is really what it is.
It's another plate. It's another plate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah, yeah. And so I just want to point out, making that rant longer than it needs to be, but I want to point out, like, I do all this stuff. Like, as much as I'm screaming at me, you know what I mean? When I'm all like, God damn it, guys, we need to not, like, have all this preciousness. I'm saying that to myself too. I have a ton of things I still have hang-ups about. But I fully agree. I think this is a thing that normally is said with very quiet voices about splitting costs with artists, but you just what's really funny, I think every single time I've done that, it has sold out, which is so self-evident that, like, they were motivated, I was motivated, they were motivated enough to even bring it up in the first place because they have strength and understanding of their own, they're like, I'll definitely be able to sell that, and I've had to repress, some of them. And I have another thing coming up where they're doing the exact same deal. And these are people that I now consider to be core artists who I would work with forever. And I'd love to do that deal with forever. You know what I mean? Because they are as much a partner, and it's just, yeah, it's so funny. That's such an obvious, this sort of stuff is stuff I've been talking about, but it's such an obvious thing that, like, if everybody's invested, it doesn't even have to be 50-50. And, you find yourself saying things like, okay, I'm interested in doing this. How many could you buy at wholesale? You know what I mean? And maybe that language has to be, do you want to come in at cost first? Like, do you want to come in at 12, 20, 30% at cost? And that should just be a baseline conversation. And by the way, maybe everybody's having this conversation and I'm just slow to have that conversation. You know what I mean?
I occasionally the conversations come up, but I think for the most part, the mysterious world of record labels, artists aren't necessarily advocating for that, and we could do a better job of I have my reservations as well. I feel like it puts me in a position of weakness for me to admit that I cannot carry the burden by myself. And that, hey, if you took 50, I can do 75, and Mike at Ramble will do 50 as well, and then we can do a bigger press. And yeah, like you said, those copies, either through flat out sales or that artist comes back to you and goes, hey, I ran out. Can I?
Yeah, 100%. Because they're the motivated party, you know what I mean? And they're happy to do it. A lot of times these are early artists or people who haven't had something out for a while, or the record's kind of interesting. And people need to understand, like, I can think a record is phenomenal, but I can also kind of try to read the tea leaves. You talked a lot about it. Like, you're trying to figure out where does a record fit in? And once you start liking a record, you start, like, Magical Christmas landing it a little bit and going, like, well, this is the best version of what happens when this record comes out. But over time you get better at going, and this is the worst thing that happens. And you go, where is it in between those two things? And sometimes you're just right on the edge of, like, the upside and the downside feel similar to me. Where I'm at financially this month, this year, is just in a different place. And I think that should instantly start a conversation instead of being like this, like, well, maybe if you guys want to suggest it, I would accept it. You know what I mean? Like, and so, yeah, any labels that are listening to this, like, you have our permission is what I'm trying to say. You have Mike and Sam's permission to offer that deal. And if they don't like it, come talk to us,
Yeah. Yeah. I would encourage people to, even though I have my own reservations, and to have those conversations and take a chance. With this new record I have coming from Michael Hicks of Nashville Ambient Ensemble.
I saw that record,
wonderful aspiration of the source, trying to figure out, okay, Nashville Ambient Ensemble did this. This is a brand new thing. Finding that middle, which we're starting with 100 copies. And I told him, we're going to start with 100 because I don't know where exactly the album's going to land, but we'll know early enough that if we need to do any sort of repress, we can jump on that right away. So let's not do a whole bunch and feel the weight of that burden. Let's start here, and then we'll move on. I did the same with Prairie Wolf, that first Prairie Wolf record.
Really?
We started off with 100, and we knew even before the release date, that we had something special,
Mm-hmm.
and we made adjustments along the way to make sure that we had a repress following up.
Yeah,
And
that's interesting to see that that record we kind of just take it at face value that that's a very good record for you, and it did pretty well. But
yeah, and it just started off as 100 copies, and then we moved on from there. Uh, I believe that was I was pretty broke at that time. Oh yes, I was pretty broke at that time. I I sold off a big chunk of my personal collection to make sure that happened. Luke Schneider certainly didn't need Centripetal Force as a record label. He could do his own thing. He has help from
Mhm.
Third Man Records, and now other labels are working with him. But that was a partnership as well.
Mhm.
So
And sometimes
using
it's also just who you want to work with and like what part of the burden you want to shoulder. And I would say working with you, you get a lot of things like somebody who is going to go work the minds of the press. Whether or not we know what that's going to hit. But if you're somebody who really wants that validation, press in my mind, I've really started to communicate with artists is about validation. It's not about sales. You know what I mean? And if that's really exciting to you and that's part of the like business math of the whole thing of like it'd be really great to be able to bring this home and feel validated. Like that's part of why we do things. Otherwise, why do you put anything out? So like I would say as much as your bankroll matters, I think being associated with other artists on the label, being just there's a lot of intangibles that a label brings. And as much as I would tell some people to just, see go first, see if you can be a driven artist, but also learned some lessons from doing that. I think there's a little bit of that too. It's everybody should try to put out their own record and work in the food industry. Those are the two things I think people should do. But um but yeah, you get the empathy, but like I just think there's a lot of intangibles around record labels, and I think we don't have to be like, well, what am I bringing to the table, with if I'm not splitting the money or if I'm not doing all these things. Like you're still bringing a lot to the table, and it's a lot of intangible stuff. And I think artists probably feel that part of it more than we do. You know what I mean? Because it all is so rote for us. You know what I mean?
it makes perfect sense coming out of your mouth, and I'm like, why don't I tell myself this? Yeah, press as validation, not as moving units. And I should know that because it seems like every artist wants a pitchfork review. I've never gotten a pitchfork
No,
review. Uh, I'll send stuff to Pitchfork. I never hear back,
no. I
which is a whole nother whole nother
Oh
layer
yeah, never hearing back is a whole other thing. Yeah.
an artist issue. And
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's everybody in this industry. And again, I've pared back my stuff so much. This is one of the things is trying to remind myself to get way better about my press list. Even as I'm yelling about press kind of going away, I still should do the work. It's part of the work, you know what I mean? Because there are times it will help. And again, validation, that's part of what you're offering.
Mhm.
A label pressed your record, press happened, and people liked your record or gave you feedback on your record. That's what part of the deal is that you're splitting with the artist. You know what I mean? And if I'm asking artists to do more and be more part of the record, I need to also be make sure I'm holding up my part of the bargain a little bit better, through the burnout and all those things. So,
Yeah, if they're going to invest, the time and the effort and the money into
mhm.
creating these wonderful worlds of sound, then yeah, we have to invest our time and our money into those.
Those
I forgot
baseline
the
things.
timestamps of some of the emails that they receive, but
Yeah.
that's really what we need to do, and that's why they come to us,
Yeah,
because they
exactly.
can't be up at 2 a.m. sending 60 emails out to press people because they're at the studio at 2
Yeah,
a.m.
exactly.
putting
They're
down the
they're
final mix.
exactly. And and I think the one thing that we need to say on top of that, not to repeat too much, and I think we're probably in a good place, is that we as labels need to be thinking about, well, what else can we do? It's not working, so what else can we do? You know what I mean? And I applaud you for turning the camera on and just talking to people, because I think that's what we need to do. We need to make. I still have people go, "Wow, I finally listened to that blah 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 record, and it's really good." And I go, "Yeah, I put it out." You know, like I know that I have a wildly different. You know, I have to even like create the yield record because sub imprint, because I'm like, yes, I need to like make sure the people who came for the Elkhorn aren't get suddenly listening to, you know, 90s electronica and going, wait, what label is this? You know, but like, um and so I have that working against me on some level, but like in general, you would think that people around you, but they don't have the time. They don't have, you need to talk to them. You need to communicate a lot to people right now. You know, as I've said, like the throughout my time working on in social media analytics and all these other things, right at the dawn of all that to now, you used to say you have to hear about something 3 times. Then it was you have to hear about something 5 times or 7 times. They're in the 20s now.
Oh yeah.
And of course
Yeah.
that's, you go, why do I see this ad so many times and it's so awful and it's so like brain catchy, but it's still so bad. And you're going, that's the only thing that breaks through now, you know? And so you are part of that, whether or not you want to be, you're part of that society, you know? And we are all, your best friend might not even realize you put out a record today. And it's up to you to go communicate cleanly and clearly. And I you know, I'm trying to do that, but you know, I think we all can do that a lot better. And I applaud you for trying new things. And if you find a better thing than what we're doing now, please tell me, but tell other people too. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's also a little bit of in this industry. I remember somebody saying it about a different industry, but it's like anybody who's doing well like pulls up the ladder behind them a little bit. You know what I mean? And, you know, and I think there's a little bit of that too. Like when something works for you, you don't exactly go run around and going, this is why it's helping. This is why it's working. You go, no, it's because I'm just so good. You know, it's like,
Yeah, no, we need to stamp that out. You know, when I started up the label, I had a couple of people that I went to that ran labels that I respected, and they helped me out so
oh,
much.
that's great.
And now when folks come to me, I will share everything. I will, you know, but maybe with certain contacts, I'm a little more judicious
Sure,
because
sure.
that's what those particular people expect out of me. I
Hmm.
can't just give away email addresses sometimes because sometimes, you know,
Yeah, yeah, of course.
people want you to be judicious about who you share with. But um, Tim from Island House,
Hmm. Hmm.
before he started up, he would ask me questions all the time, and I was like, keep
Great.
the questions coming.
That
Let's
doesn't surprise me because he did such a good, I was always very impressed. I don't know the guy, but I was very impressed when he came out the gates. So, such a good example of enthusiastic
Yeah.
and good mixed with, you had all the good baselines of something you need to be successful, which is really good quality records straight out the gate, but also very loud, very proud, very enthusiastic, very genuine. And I associate that label with his enthusiasm as much as I'm associated with, you know, the Sea Wind and Battery, right? You know what I mean? Or whatever. Right?
He's so bubbly.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I've
you
never
know,
met the guy. I still know that. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
I met him a couple times, and yeah, when you get him going, like it's all ruddy faced and excited.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
great.
And
Yeah,
I think that's how we all are. And I don't think we've been trained to bring that to the fore. You know, like I want to talk your ear off about the label and what I have coming, but I think sometimes we get more stayed in our way of communicating because we're worried about whatever we're worried about. And I think what people want is when you're, you know, a couple beers in at the back of the show saying, "Oh my God, I got this thing next month. I can't believe how cool it is." You know what I mean? They want that part of you. You know what I mean? In all things. And so um, I think we all could be a lot better. And I think I want people to hold me accountable to that. You know, like, hey, tell me what you're doing. Stop being careful. You know what I mean? And I think the same for you. And it's so nice to have you reach out and sort of do some validating there. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, all the rules we can break them all. They're you know, I always loved Tuesday release dates. If I want to do a Tuesday release date, I'm doing a Tuesday release date. Doesn't have to be a Friday.
I I was
Uh,
thinking about Tuesday release dates this morning and thinking about how important Tuesdays used to be to me. This morning, I was just thinking about that. I was like, man, it does suck that they're Fridays now.
it does, and it sucks for the record stores because who goes into a record store on Tuesday if it's not release
Yeah,
day?
exactly.
I mean, I will, but
Yeah.
I'm conditioned to. But okay, so wonderful
Mm,
aspiration of the stores. Michael Hicks
yeah.
played Sunday night in Nashville. Album doesn't come out until September 17th. He said, "We got the records in. Can I
Yeah.
sell some?" I said,
Of
"Yeah,
course you can.
go ahead. We're breaking rules."
Yes,
That
yeah.
September 17th date is just well, I'll be snarky. That's our funeral date. That's
Well, oh my God. Well, so you're
right.
hitting something about that I've been very clear about. Like,
Hmm.
you know, and anything this is a nice pin for the future, right? Is a great way to send us off is not to step on your story if you have more, but like, I think that's a great example of stop. If the press cycle doesn't matter, if none of this fucking matters and none of it works, why are we so beholden to this cycle? Like get over it. Like let people have the record early, or let people have a view of the record early, or hey, by the way, if you're ordering the Singulars record from me right now, it's going in the mail. I have it. Why would I not ship it to wait to ship it for 2 weeks? I'll just forget at that point, you know what I mean? Or it'll be a big pain for me. Like like treating a record like a living, breathing thing that needs to be sold, not needs to be marketed,
Hmm.
is just like what are we doing? You know what I mean? And so I think any techniques you can come up with, it's like I know we need to shift that way, and I actually haven't done the work to figure out what does shifting that way mean. What does shifting away from the press cycle mean? You know what I mean? Because it does feel like the funeral. It feels like the record's done when you put it out, and
So
that
it's
should be the
normal.
and yeah, and it's like that should be the birth. You know, that should be, and for everybody else it is. Like the only people in the industry think of it that way, right? And so yeah.
That's why I appreciate Aquarium Drunkard. They are just as busy as we are. This is their passion project, and I like when they review a record a month, 6 weeks after it comes out,
Yeah.
because I'm hoping that it untrains people that September 17th is the release date, and then on the 18th it's old news. No, maybe they'll review it in late October, and it
Yeah.
provides a little life.
And
Uh,
you want those trails for a long time. That means the thing has legs. And yeah, 100%. Like you
yeah,
can get me going too
I've got a
much on.
couple ideas I'm going to try later this year, and then inspired from you had a newsletter that
Yeah,
touched a
oh
lot
yeah, about this.
on
Yeah.
this, and my vision is I've got I'm passionate about all of my releases, but I'm
Hmm.
uh passionate about a couple particular releases that I think more people need to know about. And I think I need to just pop on weeks after release and hold like me. I'm going to be on.
Yes.
I'm going to hold it up and talk to people directly, like we're talking to people, and say, "Hey, this is why you need this Yaru record. This is why you need this Muhammad Mustafa Hadarian record."
Hmm.
Let me talk passionately for a couple of moments with you, and it's going to do a couple things. I hope one, it's going to continue the personal connection making that people appreciate, and it's my attempt to say, hey, yeah, sure, the release date was February, but this album is still great in September. Arguably, we're heading into fall. This album's even better in the fall than it was in February. And with the Muhammad Mustafa Hadarian record, perhaps it's even a better record now, given the political context of what happened in
Yes.
Iran, a couple of months
Excuse me.
ago.
Yes.
Uh, and I'm going to try a couple things like that to kind of subvert the timeline. I'm still going to use the timeline, but I want to learn how I can subvert it in hopes of maybe someday I don't need it. I don't know.
Exactly. And I mean, if you hear us talk, it just seems absurd. Like that, those are great records. Why are they didn't go bad? You know what I mean? And if, especially if it's a really good record that you really loved, why would you stop talking about it?
Yeah,
You know,
it's not a
why?
bag of grapes from
Yeah,
February.
exactly. It didn't turn to vinegar or fine.
Yes.
And it is a real absurdity of the way capitalism and certain cycles and attention cycles work. And I don't think an artist thinks about themselves that way. And if they do, they've been mistreated by the industry. You know what I mean? They just want their art out there. You know what I mean? And so the contentification of the world too has ruined some of this too. So that was always true, but I think as the world becomes more about this content over art sort of model, it's becoming, staleness is a thing that people worry about, and I just don't care. I want to stop caring. I want to stop caring is a good way of saying it. You know what I mean? So well, I think that's a perfect place to end, and I would love to hear people's opinions on this exact thing because uh it's one of those things where I feel passionately that we must do it, and I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we know how to do what we know how to do.
yes.
And yeah, I welcome any ideas. If people want to, I know this goes on Instagram and other platforms. If people want to put those in the comments, do that. Also, uh, I I did begin talking about all the emails, but yeah, message, email if you don't want to broadcast to the world
Yeah.
your ideas or questions. I assume the same is true
Yes,
for you, Sam.
absolutely. Those are the emails you want to get. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Those
Yeah.
are the emails you love getting. So,
Those are the ones that I will answer at 2 a.m. Gladly.
yeah,
I,
exactly.
I'll gladly I'll do my business, emails. I'm a production manager for a concert promoter. I'll do those between, 9 and 6.
Hmm.
But I will gladly, if you've
Yeah,
got ideas about how to re-envision artists and labels working together, I'm up for you to
I'm ready
join.
to have that conversation for sure, and I'm ready to listen for sure too. Well, this has been wonderful. Thanks for, jumping on and, without a lot of plan here and just having a conversation. That's how I love doing this. And I foresee that you will be invited back. I would love to see how that we're progressing in this sort of thing. You know what I mean? I think that's if we're doing the science, we need to check in and see like how did the science go? So
Yeah. I even think a round table discussion with other folks,
yes,
people like Brad,
Brad. Yeah,
it, Adam from Eider
yeah.
Down, people like that, people that I've never seen Brad in real life. I've seen Adam in real life.
Really?
Yeah, he came down to Oakland. Ox Meadows was playing
Oh
with,
yeah, yeah.
so I ran into him there for the first time. I
I love that guy.
I
I've known him
appreciate
for forever now. Yeah.
it.
Yeah. But yeah, some of these folks in our world, I want to continue to there's no reason any one of us has to be the owner of this conversation. You know what I mean? As much as I like starting some of these conversations, I think ping-ponging this around, having more places where this conversation can happen is exactly what we all want. And we should be hearing from more people.
Yeah, and maybe a few more artists
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
really, getting. We might not be understanding everything we think we understand about what artists want
Oh,
uh, and
100%. Yeah.
look for. So if we're calling for partnerships, then
How do
getting
we
them
be better
involved.
partners?
Yeah,
I'm certain I could be an infinitely better partner at times.
me too.
So, uh, yeah, this is a great conversation. Thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate finally getting to meet you a little bit more realistically. And again, just thank you so much for, taking that first step of reaching out. That is as we've kind of discussed, that's a big, uh, you added to your day by doing that. And I appreciate that. So.
Yeah, I got a flight to catch at 4 in the morning, so I got to go. But
Yeah,
thank you for having me on, and thank you for opening up these conversations for everyone to hear and interact with.
Thanks again. All right.
Thank you.
I just did all this and I wasn't recording. What the hell? Okay. What did I just say? I just had a big rant. Thanks for the interview, Mike. It was so nice. It's so nice to be validated and kind of be giving each other permission to do things and to think about things and to share things. I hope we can check in soon, and see how us sort of opening ourselves up to new ideas is progressing for us. In fact, around some of that, I have some thoughts next week for maybe trying some new things that I was ranting about in that last Bandcamp episode. What I'm going to play for you, what I just decided to play for you, is the new Spiritual Exit. The album I'm putting out is called Fragment. Oh, man. I'm sending it to press today. It is phenomenal. I just did this rant. It's really, really good. It's by Aaron, who was previously known as Acre. It is a whole nother level for him. I think it's a very personal record. Been waiting for it for quite a while. I've seen Spiritual Exit play a few times and kind of a while back, and I know he was working on a record and kind of came out of nowhere, and it is great. It is mastered incredibly well. It's just beautiful. Just a really gorgeous record, and way more depth and nuance and complexity than a lot of things he's done. I really liked Acre a lot and that project. It was right in my wheelhouse, but like this is that plus a bunch of new elements. Yeah, it's wonderful. I'll play something from it. We're going to try to get it out pretty quickly. I'm kind of slipping it in between some of the stuff just because he's doing so much playing of shows and touring and really trying to get this record off the ground. And so it's going to be a CD, so it's going to turn around very quickly. So I should have that in hand. I mean, my number one problem right now is just when to promote things and how quickly things have to come out, just because it's going to be this big backup of incredible stuff. The Noise Witch album went from kind of being in limbo to being almost done as I speak. So Yield's moving along very quickly. I have some interesting ideas for some other stuff. So some of this kind of hurry up and wait that's been happening is going to just turn into hurry up. That's it for this week. I know it's a long one. Thanks for anybody who's stuck around. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. The world is not very kind right now, and so it's just an important time to try to be kind to each other and forgive yourself for things. And there's a lot going on. Yeah, I'll see you next week.